So first of all, we're here in Maximilian Kolbe High School, and we do thank the Catholic School Board for letting us be here. It was obvious that we were not going to have enough space at Town Hall to host this meeting. So because we are here, we've had to improvise in some of our AV arrangements, and we do thank Most Excellent Productions for being here with us tonight. The meeting is being audio and video recorded, but it is not being streamed. Mr. Clerk, will it be streamed on our website later?
Thank you, through Mr. Mayor. We will be, once we have the videotape, we will be looking for opportunities to make it public.
Thank you. So the process that we're following tonight, this is a special council meeting, public planning meeting. It's conducted in accordance with the Planning Act and the town's procedural bylaw. We conduct the meeting with the same orderly respect and decorum as we would host in our council meetings in chambers. We're here this evening to discuss the application received from Highland Gate Development, Inc. concerning proposed draft plan of subdivision, an official plan amendment, and a zoning bylaw amendment. Town staff are still in the process of reviewing those applications. Staff have not finalized their review. Members of council are here tonight to listen to the information and the comments and questions that members of the public will be providing. Council will not be making a statement this evening. Council will definitely not be making any decision tonight. We certainly recognize the significance of the proposal and obviously the public interest that is generated. Everyone will have an opportunity to speak. We would request that you sign in if you wish to speak. It helps us move forward. We will be presenting up on the screen the list of people who are speaking so you can come up when you see your name being called. And you can sign up if you decide through the meeting that you wish to speak. We will have someone over at the table and we will gladly add you on to the list. In the case we run out of time this evening, those who do not get to speak will be offered the first opportunity at the next meeting, which is in September. Also, and we'll do this again when we start the meeting formally, but if you wish to be notified of further meetings and you're not on a list right now, there is green interested party forms over. Patty, could you please hold up? So Patty over in the corner by the vending machine there is holding up the form that we'd like you to fill out, and then we'll put you on our follow-up list. In accordance with the York Catholic District School Board policy, we have to conclude our meeting tonight by 10 o'clock. That is, our permit ends at 10. It's one of the reasons that we wanted to start earlier. Each speaker will be given 5 minutes. There are countdown clocks here. With the exception, the Highland Gate Ratepayers Association has requested an exemption of our procedural bylaw. So the first speaker will be Dave Newton, the president of the Highland Gate Ratepayers Association executive, and he will be granted up to 15 minutes. Just as a matter of decorum, all comments are directed to or through the chair, and that's myself. Speakers will be called in order that they appear on the sign-in list. Due to the significant public interest, this is the first of 3 meetings that are scheduled. The second meeting is scheduled for September the 30th, and the third is scheduled for October the 28th. Town staff will be making notes of comments and questions, and we have almost all hands on deck tonight from our planning department. So they'll be making notes. They'll be writing down your questions. Certainly feel free to email any questions as well. We will be updating over the summer comments or answers to questions as staff gets through to addressing those. And there is a web page, aurora.ca/Highland Gate. And again, if you just go to our website, there's the scrolling pictures. And if you just click on the picture for Highland Gate, it takes you to the page that's there. Okay, so we will now start the formal meeting. Councillors, first of all, Mr. Clerk, I can't see the clocks from this far.
6:41.
It's 6:41. We are at St. Maximilian Kolbe. This is Town of Aurora Special Council Public Planning Meeting. Councillors, declarations of pecuniary interest and general natures thereof. Seeing none, Mr. Clerk, may I please have a motion to approve the agenda as has been circulated? Councillors Gartner and Maracas, comments or questions? All in favor? Contrary? That is carried. Thank you. Council, if I could please have someone move waiver of procedural bylaw to allow a representative of the Ratepayers Association to speak. I've got Councillors Thompson and Maracas. Requires 2/3. All in favor? Contrary? That is carried. Secondly, Council, if someone would please put the recommendation on the floor, which is that the report be received, that the comments be received and referred to staff, and further that the second two meetings, one September the 30th and one October the 28th, be approved. Councillors, we'll decide, Councillor Puri and Councillor Kim, and we'll call the vote on that afterwards. The purpose of tonight's public planning meeting is to allow members of the public to provide comments on the application by the Highland Gate development. The process of the meeting is as follows. Town staff will outline the purpose of the planning application which is being considered. After staff speak, the applicant will be given an opportunity to make a presentation and address issues raised in the staff report or public concerns already on file. Following the presentation, members of the public will be invited to offer their comments or concerns respecting the proposal. And we would ask you to come up to the microphone and give us your name and address. Town staff will be taking notes of your comments for a future report. Under the Planning Act, the applicant or residents have a right to appeal any decision of council on a public planning application to the Ontario Municipal Board. To appeal, you must verbally express any comments or concerns here tonight or submit any comments or concerns in writing to the town prior to adopting the application. The Ontario Municipal Board may dismiss all or part of any appeal. Finally, this public planning meeting is being audio and video recorded. Your name, address, comments, and any other personal information are being recorded according to the Municipal Act and the Municipal Freedom of Information and Protection of Privacy Act. This will help our clerk prepare accurate minutes and create a record that is available to the public, including the town's website. Any questions about the collection of this data should be addressed to the town clerk, Town of Aurora. With that, I will ask the clerk to confirm that notification to the public as required by the Planning Act has occurred. Mr. Clerk.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The required notice of public meeting for item number 1, the proposed draft plan of subdivision, official plan amendment, and zoning bylaw amendment, Highland Gate Developments, Inc., 21 Golf Links Drive, files sub 2015-01, OPA 2015-01, ZBA-2015-02 was given by mail on May 28, 2015, to all addressed property owners within 120 meters of the subject lands, by ground signage posted on the subject lands, and by notification in the Aurora Era Banner and the Aurora newspapers in accordance with the rules of procedure under the Planning Act.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. I will now ask the Director of Planning, Mr. Ramuna, to begin with the presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We'll begin. Aurora Planner Lawrence Cook will provide a brief overview of the applications before us this evening, and then we'll turn it over to the applicant whose consulting team is here, and Mr. Don Given has a presentation on behalf of the applicant. We can begin, Lawrence.
Well, good evening, Mr. Mayor and members of council. The application at hand tonight we'll be discussing is the draft plan of subdivision, official plan, and zoning bylaw amendment on the subject lands 21 Golf Links Drive. In general, the owner is proposing a residential subdivision over a 41-hectare parcel of land. The purpose of the official plan and zoning bylaw amendment applications are to redesignate and rezone the subject lands to implement the residential subdivision. This plan here shows the subject lands. Bathurst Street to the left of the slide, and to the right it will be Yonge Street. Please note that the proposed applications will be reviewed for consistencies with the PPS, the Grove Plan, the Oak Ridges Moraine Conservation Plan, the Lake Simcoe Protection Plan.
Excuse me, Lawrence, could you go back? No acronyms. You use PPS.
Oh, okay, sure. The Provincial Policy Statement, Grove Plan, Oak Ridges Moraine Conservation Plan, Lake Simcoe Protection Plan, York Region Official Plan, Town of Aurora Official Plan, and the Town of Aurora Zoning Bylaw. The subject land has the following existing designations shown on this plan: private parkland, small portions of environmental protection, and stable neighborhood. The owner is proposing to redesignate portion of the subject lands to stable neighborhood, public parkland, and environmental protection. In addition, the owner is proposing a maximum height of 3 stories or 11 meters for single detached dwellings, whereas the existing official plan permits 3 stories or 9 meters within the stable neighborhood designation. This plan shows the proposed portions of the subject lands that will be redesignated to environmental protection, public parkland, and stable neighborhood. The subject lands have the following existing zoning classification: a major open space zone, major open space O2 exception zone, Oak Ridges Moraine Environmental Protection Zone. The owner is proposing to rezone the subject lands to R2 Second Density Residential Exception Zone, RA3 Apartment Residential Exception Zone, Environmental Protection Exemption Zone, and Major Open Space Exception Zone. A list of exceptions are also noted in the staff report. And here's a plan which details the proposed zoning classification. As mentioned earlier, the owner is proposing a residential draft plan of subdivision. In general, this chart illustrates the owner's proposing 184 single detached dwelling, a high-density block for a 10-story apartment building located closer to Yonge Street, which is estimated at 144 residential units. In addition, the owner is also proposing 14 hectares of environmental protection lands, 5 hectares of parquet, and open space lands. This is a quick plan to show the proposed subdivision just west of Murray Drive. The next plan here illustrates the proposed draft plan of subdivision east of Murray Drive. During the circulation, planning staff have received numerous concerns from the public. However, before we get to that, I would like to speak on the first submission comments. The proposed application has been circulated to the internal and external departments. At this stage, staff have received first submission comments. However, a final comprehensive list of comments will be included in a future staff report for consideration. Please note that York Region have exempt the proposed official plan amendment from regional approval. During the circulation, planning staff have received numerous of concerns from the nearby residents. Planning staff has summarized the concerns in the following headings. However, a more detailed summary are listed in the report. Just going over a few items here, the resident has concerns with the proposed streets with increased traffic, compatibility and urban design issues, engineering matters, concerns regarding property value, as well as comparable applications. Please note that the transportation study and urban design guidelines submitted by the applicant will be subject to a third-party peer review to provide expert advice pertaining to those reports. Next steps, a lot of work still needs to be done here. Staff will take a technical review of the subject application and address comments received from tonight's public planning meeting, as well as the public planning meeting in September and October. Thank you.
Thank you, Lawrence. And just before we go to the proponent, there's a number of seats up at the front, so those of you who are standing at the back, if you'd like to move up, there's a number of seats available here. Mr. Given.
Mr. Mayor, members of council and staff and members of the public, I'm going to be very brief tonight. This is an evening for the residents to speak. Many of them know what we are proposing, and I'm sure have come prepared to express their views. I did think it would be helpful to run through a few things, though, that are intended to help this dialogue. First of all, the team that we have here is a team that is sitting in the back rows. They are available to answer questions should that be necessary, but in the interest of saving time, I would think it would be better if we could have people get in touch with us or with the direct contact of some of these people so that we can help deal with them. There has already been a considerable amount of interaction since a public meeting a month ago to deal with some of the individual property interests or in some of the cases, bigger questions that were asked. And through the summer, we will continue with that process. So by the fall, we're hoping that we can narrow down the number of issues that there are between us. This is the master plan drawing, and I found this to be the most helpful of the drawings that we have prepared, because when you look at the draft plan, when you look at the zoning, they're kind of lifeless drawings. This takes all of the ideas that we have and integrates them into one plan, so that you can now see the lotting fabric along with the redevelopment of the open space system. You can see the trail system, the landscape treatments that we're proposing. I hope you will find this is more informative than just looking at a plan, and will become helpful in any further discussions. You've already heard about the yield. I don't want to repeat that. The plan of subdivision has been suggested as being out of character with the area. We did do an analysis of the density of the lands in this vicinity to see if we were in the same range. As you'll recall, we're proposing 50-foot lots as minimum, with approximately 34-meter depths, or over 110 feet of depth on average for the lots. That is in keeping with character. Our density is in keeping with the densities in and around this neighborhood. It's not out of character with the area. One of the things that we were asked is, how do the lots that are going to be backing onto roads interface? We've provided here a cross-section that shows on the left side of the cross-section the extent of the boulevard and planting that would take place, so that we end up with approximately 6 meters or better on that side of the road before you reach the proposed fence line that would exist around the existing housing. This drawing, in combination with planting plans that are being done, will help you understand how we can deal with the concerns about impact on the existing community. And many individuals have already met with our representatives to discuss what they would like to see. With respect to the coverage and the zoning conditions that we're asking for, we think we are in keeping with the neighborhood. On the left side, you'll see, for example, Cranberry Lane, 4 houses, and the type of coverage they have. And on the right side of the screen, you'll see a proposal where we are asking for something similar in scale. We don't think we're out of character with the neighborhood. The only variance from the existing zoning is that we do not use coverage as a measure of control, but most people don't today in our world. It's basically a dated control. We use side yards, backyards, rear and front yards to control the extent to which you can use your property. And what we're proposing here, we think, is in keeping with the streetscape and character of the area. We've also tried to understand what would happen if you were looking out your backyard. What would you see? And the cross-section that we have here, and I should say that all of this will be available to the public through the website so that they can spend some time digesting it. But we've tried to show the massing that would occur on this site compared to what exists today, and I hope that'll help people understand the scale of what we're proposing versus what is there today. With respect to traffic, I have had our traffic engineer get very specific about how many cars we can expect in the peak hour on any one of these streets. So the drawing that you see up there has numbers on it. Those are the number of peak hour trips that you would see on a typical street, and they vary depending on the length of the street and the number of units on it, obviously. But each one of those shows what is estimated to be a peak hour trip. In my view, what we are proposing here is consistent with what I said at the last public meeting that we hosted, which is these are not going to be major impositions on the community. One of those streets, the longest one, would have, for example, 15 cars traveling during the peak hour, which is 7:15 to 8:15 in the morning. That's not a major traffic issue from the perspective of the people that we use as advisors, and I'm sure that you'll, when you have your peer review, benefit from having this kind of more detailed presentation to help you understand what we're proposing. There's a couple of questions about, well, not a couple, a lot of people have asked why we would propose a road behind a house. and that it's unprecedented. I have a couple of examples up there that are from generally in the area. Henderson Street, for example, has conditions like that. Mulock Drive has conditions like that. The northeast corner, for example, of Bayview and Wellington has a condition like that. So that you can see that it is not uncommon. And from a privacy point of view, from a use point of view, we think with the combination of planting, setbacks from the road, careful lighting, we can make this a compatible system for the existing residents and a good system for the new residents. Our master plan numbers are here. Basically what we wanted to point out in this is the extensive green that we have, and that we are in an over-dedication situation from a parkland point of view with what is being proposed on this plan. The town will get approximately 48% of the total site in green, and a portion of that will come as parkland from a dedication point of view. The rest will come gratis. No cost to the municipality. The high density has been suggested, it's been out of character. We use measures that are typically used to judge compatibility, and the one that's most used in the siting of buildings is what they call the angular plane, which is a measure to ensure that vision and shadowing and basically control of bulk are all done in a way that's compatible with the adjacent uses. So these two drawings show you what is called the angular plane, running on a north-south axis and on an east-west axis. And you'll see that from these drawings that the plane, which is a 45-degree plane, is not impacted by the building from the property line in either case. Now, Mr. Mayor, members of council, as I said, I would be brief tonight. I hope these slides are helpful, and as I said, they will be provided on the website, and we're ready and willing to meet through the summer, throughout the entire summer, to meet with residents and continue to address concerns. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Given. Our first speaker tonight from the public is Dave Newton. He is representing the executive of the Highland Gate Ratepayers Association, and Mr. Newton has up to 15 minutes, and the timer is out the front there, sir. And again, just remind you if you could give us your name and your address before you start to speak.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of council, staff. My name is Dave Newton. I live on Marsh Harbor. I'm the president of the Highland Gate Ratepayers Association, and I'm speaking as the association's representative and also as a homeowner. The formation of our association was triggered by Club Link's announcement that the Highland Gate Golf Course was to be closed permanently as of November 2014, and given the fact that Highland's neighborhood have been the subject of previous development applications, the homeowners quickly surmised that a development application would soon follow. And as we all know, that's why we're here tonight. The Highland Gate Ratepayers Association is a not-for-profit corporation that has a growing membership of approximately 560 community-minded individuals living in 320 homes, including single-detached houses and condominium units, which were built about 30 years ago. The Highlands is an established Finnish neighborhood that was built to surround lands that are zoned open space. The open space has been used as a golf course for about 80 years. The open space is manicured and natural green space that forms a central part of the history of Aurora, not just the history of the Highlands neighborhood. The mission of our association is to ensure any development that takes place in the Highland Gate community is compatible with the existing neighborhood, to protect and promote the use of green space and recommend measures that will beautify and improve the overall character of the Highland Gate community, and to listen to our members and make decisions that serve the greater good of the community. We have, as a board, done considerable research and due diligence in understanding the reports and studies submitted by the developer in support of their application. In addition to seeking input from our homeowners in our community who have particular expertise, we have retained an urban planner and a lawyer, both of whom are experienced in these matters. We have communicated on an ongoing basis with our full membership and encourage people to communicate with you. We have surveyed the neighborhood in writing and asked homeowners for their opinions about the development application, including what they felt were the positive attributes of the planned redevelopment. There were very few positive comments. The vast majority of homeowners are firmly opposed to this developer's plans to run roads and jam houses down every former fairway, obliterating the green spaces, bringing huge increases in traffic to the neighborhood, and changing not just the topography, but the very character of our community and this town. We recognize that the former golf course lands are privately owned and the owners have certain rights. We also recognize the homeowners own their land and have certain rights. Council's job in judging the merits and shortcomings of this application before you is to balance those rights so that no one landowner profits off the backs of or in the backyards of other landowners. In our opinion, this council has strong planning tools available that can and should be applied in making any determination about the reasonableness and appropriateness of the developer's proposal. The town of Aurora has a well-thought-out and supportable official plan of zoning, bylaws that would have to be set aside to allow this development to take place. In other words, the development doesn't meet our town's own rules, standards, and guidelines. The town also recently approved the Promenade Study, which is a thorough plan designed to revitalize the downtown core of Aurora and increase density in that corridor of town. The plan places a ceiling height on high-rise construction. The golf course lands are not part of a downtown revitalization project, and the ceiling height is capped at 7 stories. Furthermore, the town owns the 1-foot reserves, which are strips of land 0.3 meters wide bordering most of the existing roads in the Highland neighborhood and separating them from open spaces of the golf course lands. The 1-foot reserves were put in place when this subdivision was approved in the 70s and 80s. They were and still are intended to be used by the municipality to prevent or control unreasonable development that does not follow proper planning principles or is contrary to the town's official plan or bylaws and standards. Courts have ruled that the reserves must be used in good faith and not arbitrarily applied. A development proposal to build roads directly behind the backyards, and in many cases not just the backyards but also the side yards of existing homes in a stable, finished neighborhood does not meet the definition of reasonable, nor is it proper planning. A development proposal to permanently and significantly change a finished neighborhood that was designed, approved, and built around tracts of open spaces is also not reasonable, nor is it good planning. A development proposal that would result in the removal of thousands of mature trees and result in the loss of natural wildlife habitats and would also see the vast majority of open space lands covered with unnecessary infill housing is also not reasonable, nor is it good planning. Homeowners recognize that some development infill that meets the tests of appropriate, reasonable, limited, and compatible with the established homes might be deemed suitable. This development does not meet those tests. This development brings no benefit to the homeowners who have lived in this neighborhood and paid taxes for decades. Development on the roads that already exist in the community might be suitable depending on the nature and impact of such development. Such infill might be described as neighbor beside neighbor development. It could involve new and compatible homes being placed beside existing homes, not directly behind or towering over existing homes. In making your decision, we ask that you carefully examine the reasonableness of a development proposal that includes erecting an 11-high-foot wall that would encase the rolling hills, green grass, trees, and small ponds surrounded by rushes that was the 5th fairway and is bordered by Highland Gate, Bathurst, and the northern edge of the property. Or erecting retaining walls throughout the other former fairways in order to change the topography by moving tons and tons of earth. Filling in the 2 large ponds on what used to be the 6th through 9th fairways, ponds that have not been properly maintained since the application was filed, ponds that are currently neglected to the point of allowing them to stagnate and choke with silt and debris. Replacing many hundreds of mature perimeter trees with new plantings that are supposed to shield existing properties, in other words, the backyards of long-term homeowners from bioswales, sewers, stormwater runoff, and parking bump outs on 10 roads that don't meet the minimum width standards established by the town. Increasing traffic through the subdivision, but particularly on club links. A road designated as a local residential street, not a collector road. And on tiny Highland Court, which will see an increase of 300%. Walking trails that are nothing more than sidewalks, bordering new roads or paved cart paths that were part of the golf course and are not in keeping with the natural trail system envisioned by the town's master trails plan. Using density as an excuse to build on 60 acres of land that has always been green space in the heart of Aurora. The developer and the Highlands homeowners form 2 parts of the equation or decision that faces this council. The third, and a very important part of this equation, is the town of Aurora. These former golf course lands, which comprise approximately 100 acres, 40 of which are part of the Oak Ridges Moraine and Lake Simcoe Conservation Authority floodplain and cannot be developed, are a historic part of Aurora. These green spaces have always been used and enjoyed by the public when the course is closed for the day or for the season. The owners of the golf course, whether Club Link or before them Granada Investments, have been very kind neighbors who allowed everyone to enjoy these lands when not in use for golfing. Walkers, joggers, cross-country skiers, kids tobogganing, and people simply enjoying the beauty of the property to take photographs or listen to the birds have been fortunate to have access to these lands. Having the 40 acres conveyed to the town is a great first step, but what about the other 60? Why not find a way to create a legacy for all of Aurora to enjoy for generations to come? If this green space is allowed to become 184 infill houses on 10 single-loaded roads that sandwich existing homes between 2 and in some cases 3 roads, along with a 10-story condominium which requires relocating a stream, then 60 acres of majestic and mature trees along with kilometers of interconnected green grasses, rolling hills, streams, marshes, ponds, habitats for birds and wildlife will be lost for good, and no one in Aurora will be able to enjoy them. We are of the opinion that this proposal, in its present configuration, does not meet the conditions or standards of reasonable and proper planning, does not meet the town's established building standards, does not meet the requirements of the town's official plan or zoning bylaws, does not support stable neighborhoods, and is not appropriate for either our neighborhood or our town, because once the open spaces are gone, they're gone for good. On behalf of the 560 homeowners, we respectfully ask that you refuse the developer's application and recommend that you suggest to the developer that they undertake a complete redrafting of the proposal. The board of the Highland Gate Ratepayers Association will volunteer to help Geranium and their partner Club Link to come up with a proposal that is a win for our long-established neighborhood, a win for our town's future, and a win for them. We hope you will join us. The current proposal is a win for only 1 of 3, and that's not good enough.
Okay, if I could bring the meeting back to order, please. Okay, we all appreciate Mr. Newton's passion and your passion, but please, could you refrain from further clapping? It will help move. Yep. And that's not to say that you can't. I did mention at the start of the meeting, we conduct the meetings under the Public Planning Act and our procedural bylaw. So I want to be very clear that our goal here is to get as many people up to the microphone tonight as possible. Your clapping slows that down. Mr. Callow, thank you.
Your Worship, thank you. Members of Council and ladies and gentlemen, my name is Bob Callow. I live at 66 Owlsfoot Crescent in Aurora, and it abuts to the Aurora Highlands golf course. You as members of Council have a tremendous responsibility to those who live here now, those who will be living here 10 years from now, 20 years from now, and 30 years from now. This town, no doubt over that time period with the Places to Grow Act and so on, will double in size or triple in size, who knows. And having a green space of this magnitude in the center of what will be a large community is an opportunity and a responsibility that you have to take advantage of. Your predecessors wisely put in a 1-foot reserve to ensure that proper planning and vision takes place in the community, a community that was already developed. I've heard that planners have said that the 1-foot reserve, they kind of poo-poo it and say it doesn't have much relevance. Well, I think they're wrong. Planners, I am reminded that planners that planned the Tim Hortons, planners for the town and planners for the developer, did the Tim Hortons development on golf links. And anyone that has gone there can see the congestion and mess that's there. And if you think that's proper planning, I don't think it is. So what I'm trying to say is planners are not perfect. The Ontario government recently, over the last 10 years, has made changes and have taken away rights of municipalities. And a very good example of where they have taken rights away from municipalities is the windmills. For example, if you didn't want a windmill in your backyard, too bad, because they took away the right of the municipality to protest that. The Ontario government, in the Places to Grow Act, the one thing they did not do is take away the municipality's right over the 1-foot reserve. The Ontario government, in their legislative process, the other thing that they did not do is to give the Ontario Municipal Board the right to override the 1-foot reserve. They do not have that right. There is some case law governing the 1-foot reserve, and that's, you can't use it in an arbitrary fashion, but you need to use it in a fashion that is consistent with good long-term planning and vision. I think that the council also has to take in the fact that over the last 2 terms of government, there was one bill brought forward by Frank Cleese relative to the development of established neighborhoods. It went through second reading in the legislature before it was felled. A similar bill is going through the legislature now. And why is that? Well, the reason that it is going through the legislature now, and the reason the previous one was, that it's wrong what's happening today. That's why it's going through. That's why it's being discussed. That's why it's being proposed. Without certain guidelines and rules and regulations related to it, simply doing what we're doing today in the view of the people that put this kind of legislative process forward is wrong. We all know what happened when Newmarket brought the Glenway situation to
1 minute, Mr. Callow.
Pardon me? Thank you. We all know what the town of Newmarket and the Ratepayers Association happened with the Ontario Municipal Board hearing. And they lost badly because the Ontario Municipal Board is guided by guidelines and legislation that really makes them give awards to developers. You could look at it that way from one perspective. But I can tell you one thing. The Glenway people, the Glenway situation did not have a 1-foot reserve. We do. I urge you and council to think about the vision of what this land could be. If you go to other communities in North America, you will see broad green spaces downtown. Think about this community 30 years from now, what it can be. Think about that green space today. I urge you, no matter what the planners say or anything else, if it's not consistent with your vision of what this community could be, I urge you to exercise that 1-foot reserve to make sure you have that vision come true. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Callow. Mr. Wernberg, please. And you serve 5 minutes, and if you can give us your name and address, please.
Okay. My name is Klaus Wernberg. I live on Cedar Crescent in the northeast section of town. I'm here because of my interest in the community and not necessarily solely in backyards and so on. I'm submitting an alternative development concept for the Highland Gate Golf Course. This concept has public greenways taking advantage of the existing green space. 2 sets of greenways will flank existing and future residences, but will reduce yard depths of future residences. You have to give something. 1 set of greenways will be entirely free of motorized traffic, with its main purpose being recreational. This 12-meter wide corridor, that's what I'm suggesting as a minimum width, is the key to my alternative proposal and is the one reducing yard depths of future residences. The second set includes a narrow road and is intended mostly to serve as green commuter corridor. This corridor has elements similar to what has been proposed by Geranium and the same total width, namely 17.5 meters, but the elements are configured differently. A colored drawing shows details, and I have one here, I can't put it on the overhead, shows details of the profiles of the greenways. My concept is feasible, but requires that tableland, developable land, will be used as parkland. The benefits of the greenway approach are set out in the report that I have here, which I'm making available to the town of Aurora tonight, along with the drawing that shows greenway locations, their profiles, and other suggested development elements. I also have some extra copies that are available after the meeting. You can pick them up at the exit. I hope that you can see value in my alternative concept. It is community-oriented. I'm by and large concerned with school traffic, that we will make it possible for children, students that is, to walk to the 5 schools that are within walking distance in safe corridors, meaning non-motorized off-road corridors. And I also am concerned about setting conditions that will make our downtown revitalization more possible, that we basically create a network of walkable transit arteries that are so inviting that people who live in this area will want to walk there. They want to leave their cars at home because it is such a pleasure to walk downtown. That is something that doesn't exist today. We also have no park space in this area because of previous applications basically having ruled that the private open space is sufficient for park, but that is no longer the case naturally. The private open space is going to go down the drain. That is the golf course. Anyway, I thank you for your attention, and if you wish to have a look at this, I can also make extra copies, but 35 or 40 copies I have here that can be made available to you, and you can have a look at them after you leave the meeting. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Wernberg. Nancy Webb, please.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. My name is Nancy Webb, and I live on Teasdale Court in Aurora. I'm also a member of the board of the RPA. This current plan calls for significant changes in topography, relocating and realigning streams and creeks, filling in natural heritage features, disturbing habitats, altering watercourses, removing existing buffers and tree cover, all of which will alter the physical characteristics of this established neighborhood. What consideration has been given to the short and long-term effects of these changes to the ecosystems of these lands and the downstream lands? Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Webb. Stephen Thompson, please.
Mr. Mayor, members of council, fellow residents, my name is Stephen Thompson. I live at 15 Owl's Foot Crescent in Aurora, and I'm here representing myself as a resident. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to address the council and to put a question on the record. My family and I were introduced to the town of Aurora in 1986. We were impressed by the spirit of the community that we sensed in the town. When we were transferred back to Ontario, we chose Aurora and selected The area around the golf course is a safe place to raise our 2 daughters. We were not disappointed. The community was and continues to be caring, quiet, and close-knit. During the ensuing 27 years, we have watched the town of Aurora grow through the development of respectfully designed communities and enclaves until now. The new homes proposed by Highland Gate Developments, Inc. will be physically isolated in certain areas from the rest of the adjacent community through high barrier walls and roads conjunctive to the existing properties. The current residents will be forced to deal with years of construction and related noise, heavy traffic, dust, and debris. Those residents who have, in the past, invested in landscaping and other property improvements will see these investments unusable or significantly impaired by construction. In addition to the increased density of homes and traffic congestion, the untested changes to infrastructure, electricity, cable, water, sewage, may in all likelihood have an impact on the existing homes and properties. Against this backdrop, my question is very simple. What is the long-term benefit of the proposed development to the existing residents of the Highland Gate community? And what compensation can we anticipate if the single-loaded roads are approved? Thank you very much.
Susan Shaw, please.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of council, and the audience. My name is Susan Shaw. I live at 66 Seton Drive, and I've been a resident of Aurora since first moving here in 1977. I'm not a member of the Highland Ratepayers Association, nor does my property abut the proposed development plan, but as a town citizen and ratepayer, I do have 2 main concerns with the current master plan. The first is the proposed loss of a continuous green corridor that has graced our town since Crown Grant awarded these lands to early settlers between 1799 and 1806. Although these lands have been in private ownership and have undergone several plans of subdivision since those early years, a much valued green corridor of open space has continued to exist between Bathurst and Yonge Street for over 200 years. The maintenance of a continuous green corridor between Bathurst and Yonge Streets complies with the Town of Aurora's Trails Master Plan of 2011 and the Region of York's Transportation Master Plan of 2008, both of which identify this corridor as a potential off-road location for the provincially significant Oak Ridges Trail and the Greenbelt route, with possible linkages to the future proposed lake-to-lake trail between Lakes Ontario and Simcoe. In spite of these approved policy documents, the current Highland Gate Master Plan portrays the Oak Ridges Trail on road following Seton Drive, Murray Drive, and Kennedy Street as it runs through the south and western part of town. Why is the developer not incorporating these municipal plans and policies into its draft master plan through the inclusion of a dedicated corridor for this provincially significant trail? The proposed Highland Gate subdivision plan delineates a significant green open space corridor between Bathurst and Murray Drive, Bathurst Street and Murray Drive, but sadly does not propose a continuous corridor between Murray Drive and Yonge. Rather, it includes a very narrow corridor running east of Murray Drive, which then moves on to sidewalks in Block 203 before continuing through Blocks 215, 216, and 224. The developer is proposing to substitute a more natural material along the footpath in Block 203, hoping to convince users that it's a green space, but it will, in reality, still be an urban sidewalk. After speaking with our town's planners and several representatives from Geranium Homes, I believe that a little creativity in lot and house design could allow a green off-road corridor to exist in Block 203. Furthermore, the current design does not provide for a safe linkage across Murray Drive for users of the corridor, nor does it have enough access points along the length of the plan. I hope the town will insist that these issues be addressed in the next version of the plan, as per current planning policies of the town. My second area of concern relates to the uniformity of house designs in the current proposal. A representative of the proponent stated at the April 15th public meeting that all homes would be two-story, 2,500 square foot homes. The Duranium planners have since clarified that there will be a choice between two-story, 2,500 square foot homes and bungalows, but the buyer will ultimately make the choice at the time of purchase. I'm not convinced that this approach will work to maintain the integrity of the current fabric of the existing communities that currently exist within the boundaries of this plan. Oops, sorry. My pages are stuck. Ooh, okay. I've been troubled for some time over the very limited mix of housing stock that our town has approved over the last 2 to 3 decades. Many current home buyers are seeking well-designed smaller home options on smaller lots, not condos, not townhomes, not large detached homes. And unless council insists on a more diverse combination of lot size and home design that meets the needs and desire of its younger and older citizens, many of us will be forced to leave Aurora after making this our home for many years and decades.
1 minute, Ms. Shaw.
In summary, I employ the mayor, councillors, and town planning staff to press the developer to incorporate the following elements into the next plan. A continuous green off-road corridor for the Oak Ridges Trail from Bathurst to Yonge, the addition of several public access points along the length of this green corridor as per the current planning policy of our town, the provision of a well-designed walkway across or under Murray Drive to ensure the safety of the users of the corridor, the consideration of a more diverse approach to lot size and home design that fits with the current fabric of the communities on both the west and east side of the development and with the social needs of our community. The town is in charge here, so I'm appealing to you for some innovative decision-making that will benefit our entire town, not just the pockets of the developers. This is our last chance to maintain the green heritage corridor between Bathurst and Yonge that has graced our town for more than 200 years, and I trust that you will find the strength and the will to do so. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Shaw. Cindy Skillens, please.
Good evening, Mayor and councillors. My name is Cindy Skillens. I am a long-term resident of Aurora and reside and have 2 caps basically. I live on Harriman Road, and I'm also representing my mother who lives on Golf Links. So I have 2 hats. One is who someone's going to be very impacted by this, and just as a concerned citizen. The one thing I find through this that keeps ringing over and over in my head is we go through school and we're talked about bullies not being part of what we want to have in our community. And it really feels that this is what's happening. There's a lot of people who live in Aurora for a very long time, who have very strong needs as to why they came to Aurora, and that's to be in a green area that respects the citizens and respects their neighbors. This development seems more like a bullies aspect, coming in saying, no, we're developing something that you will like. The problem is it does not fit, as the developer is implying, the current urban environment that's there. I can say from my mom's perspective, she's going to have a 3-story house that's totally going to engulf anything she has in her backyard. Anything that she's built, anything that she's matured over the last decade will be totally unusable. I can also say that too, and this is a concern from an environmental concern, is they say that the watershed will be respected. They're going to be paving, there are going to be large homes, and there's going to be very minimal lots that the actual rainwater can now go percolate down into the water table. So that means anyone who lives aside the area that the trees have been using, the rainwater from the golf course no longer will. And I maintain that there's going to be a lot of death of current existing trees on residential properties aside the development. That to me is really critical because it means now once again we're all victims of somebody else's perspective of what they want to have as opposed to what we've built over the years. Other options that might come up is why not allow the current owners to buy into the property that is being no longer used as a golf course. It's a very minimal one, but it would allow for no demand on infrastructure from the town. There'd be no additional need for water, for police, for fire, and it will not incur any additional cost to the town, except that they will in the end be able to have a higher mill rate, so actually gain more revenue from the current properties as it stands. There's not a lot more that I had on my list here because there's been a lot of very good speakers ahead of me. But once again, I closed with when I spoke at Williams, that this feels like Wonder Bread. They've taken a lot away from us. They've told us you will like what you're going to have, but they give back something that's not enriched at all. And I really ask Mayor, councillors, you do have the option to have the equivalent of what New York City has as a Central Park. And I really ask you to look at that, allow other people generations from now to enjoy what I very privilegedly have enjoyed since 1957.
Thank you, Ms. Skillens. Chris Neal, please.
Mr. Mayor, councillors, staff, my name is Chris Neal. I live at 11 Highland Court. I've been in town since 1977, and I will confess to being on the board of directors of the RPA. I have both a question and a comment for you, and I'm going to keep them both relatively short. My question is quite simple. Has the town given any consideration to purchasing this property on behalf of the citizens of the town? We've all used and heard the term legacy. And what kind of legacy do we all want to leave our children and the future citizens of Aurora? Quite simple. My second would be a comment, and I've hastily sketched this down. The applicant earlier made a comment about similar single-sided streets in the area. And my comment in regards to that would be, while some do exist, I would have to think that in almost all those cases, those streets were there, and people came in and purchased those properties knowing what they were getting. The people who are currently living on the town, I'm sure if they could go ahead and purchase the properties that are going to be their current properties, would probably not. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Neal. Bruce Corbett, please.
Mr. Mayor, members of council, town planners, staff, and fellow citizens. My name is Bruce Corbett. I live at 43 Brookland Avenue in Aurora. I came to Aurora 31 years ago with my family, and my house is situated a block from the lands in question here this evening. I'm also the co-chair of the Aurora chapter of the Oak Ridges Trail Association. Also present tonight are several supporters from the Oak Ridges Trail Association, including Wilma Millage, the president of the Oak Ridges Trail Association. You will find that my comments further support comments already made in some areas. We're here, the Oak Ridges Trail Association, to make the case for a continuous off-road multi-purpose trail along a green corridor that would run from Bathurst Street in the west to Yonge Street in the east. This corridor would necessarily pass through the Highland Gate lands because all other routes have long since been taken up in streets and private property. The Oak Ridges Trail runs right through Aurora. Unfortunately, the across-town portion of the trail is all on streets. This runs counter to the provincial government direction established in 2001 with the Oak Ridges Moraine Conservation Act and the Oak Ridges Moraine Foundation, which stipulate that trails must be non-motorized and off-road as much as possible. The Aurora Trails Master Plan of 2011 also makes the same stipulation. Before us now is a unique one-time opportunity to vastly increase the quality of Aurora trails. On a broader scale, it turns out that Aurora is uniquely situated to become a provincially significant hub for major trails. The Oak Ridges Trail, the Greenbelt route run east and west. These will soon meet the Lake to Lake Trail, connecting Lake Ontario to the south, Lake Simcoe to the north. Aurora then will become a significant trail hub. It's a good reason for creating our best possible trails as part of the province-wide network. The trail we are proposing through the Highland Gate property would be a real asset, especially to South Aurora residents like myself. It would be a safe, enjoyable, healthful way to downtown and across town in all 4 seasons. That green space of the Aurora Gate properties has been part of Aurora for 2 centuries. We're now presented with the unique opportunity to preserve at least a lovely ribbon of natural space with a multi-use trail that spans West Aurora. Aurora is now very, very close to making this long-term dream a reality. The development plan as it now stands is a testament to the developers' understanding of the importance of trails. We acknowledge and appreciate the trails that have been planned, which are mostly off-road. There is one little section that interrupts the flow, and that is the piece from east of Murray Drive to the end of George Street, where the trail is actually a sidewalk. Here, the present plan shows some shallow lots that will prove a challenge to allowing space for the trail. But we have attended meetings with town planners and also with developers' representatives. Both groups show a willingness to try to modify the plan in response to various citizens' concerns. This is very encouraging. So, we earnestly believe that where there is a will, there is a way to provide a quality trail even through this problematic area. In closing, the Oak Ridges Trail Association, along with concerned Aurora residents, are urging you, Mr. Mayor, the Town Council, the town planners, Highland Gate and Geranium Corporation to be creative and collaborative in finding a way to fully off-road this trail so that our heritage green corridor can be used and enjoyed by present and future generations of Aurorans. Please be determined not to miss this single last opportunity to off-road this pedestrian way across town, a way for all seasons. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Corbett. Ms. Nemney, please. Colette Nemney.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of council. I have 2 questions. My name is Colette Nemney. I'm both a member of the board of the Highland Gate Ratepayers Association, and I'm also a resident whose property abuts to the Highland Gate Golf Course. I bring 2 questions to you. One is for the council, and one would be for the developer Geranium. My first question is with respect to the town's official plan and the fact that in the proposed development application, there is a request that the golf courses be redesignated from parkland to existing stable neighborhood. Your official plan actually contemplates that no condominium development is to occur within a stable environment, a stable neighborhood. So my question to you is, what steps will you take to ensure that not only that this land not be redesignated as stable environment, but remain as parkland? And should you agree to change the designation, what steps will you take to ensure that the condominium is not built? And my next question is directed to the members of the Geranium Corporation, who I hope are here. And my question to them is if they undertake to ensure that they will not make any applications to the Ontario Municipal Board before the public consultation process that you as council have outlined, which will go until October, that they undertake not to take steps to go to the Ontario Municipal Board before that process is entirely completed. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Nemney. We have Patricia Perry next. Ms. Perry?
Mr. Mayor, Councilman, and audience, my name is Patricia Perry, and I live at 5 Doty Street. I am a street captain for the street as part of the Highland Ratepayers Association. I have a question. The proposal calls for stormwater management using buried storm super pipes and bioswales abutting the property lines of existing backyards of private homeowners in soils and groundwater conditions that are not ideal for such infrastructures, and constructed within road allowances that are narrower than the town's established standards. What are the short and long-term risks to existing property owners in terms of health and safety and property damage? What liability provisions have been put in place by the developer and the town? Thank you.
Joanne Bartholomew, and I will remind people that there are seats up at the front here if you wish to come up and sit down.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of council, fellow neighbors, friends, residents. A number of the questions have already been asked concerning the green spaces and the trails. That was one of my questions. I live at 109 Timberline Trail. My husband and I are original homeowners, and we do back on to the golf course. I'm also a member of the board of the Ratepayers Association. In surveying many of our fellow members, a number of residents raised concerns about the lack of green space despite the beautiful central area of Oak Ridge's marine property. So rather than repeat too much of what the other people have already said, let me make this short. The town of Aurora has some beautiful trails that are part of the Oak Ridge's marine trail system. The existing trails are made of compacted earth, mulch, small gravel. They're bordered by shade trees, natural grasses, trilliums, wildflowers, and even a stream. They're lovely, peaceful nature trails that are located behind established homes that run along Aurora Heights, Orchard Heights, Heathwood Heights, and Whispering Pine, to name just a few. In contrast, the cement sidewalks adjacent to paved roads that have been proposed by this developer are not in keeping with the town's trails plan, and they will do little, if anything, to beautify our neighborhood. What amendments to the proposal will the town require in order to ensure that wider, off-road, nature trails are provided throughout the entire Highlands? Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Bartholomew. Jason Horner. Mr. Horner, please.
Good evening. My name is Jason Horner. I live at 165 Kennedy Street West in Aurora. I just wanted to make a couple of points or a couple of comments regarding, I guess, planning and progress. If I could zero in for a moment on the area that I'll refer to as Old Kennedy Street West, and let's consider Old Kennedy as an area bounded by Yonge Street on the east and Murray on the west, and including Doty and Highland Court. This is an area of town that I've lived in for 20 years, and it's been described to me often, and I would agree, as a very unique area that is full of character in the town of Aurora. With respect to planning, I think it's critical for the town to take into consideration the significance of the changes that could impact the area. And for example, I know we're here to discuss Highland Gate, but I would not want planning and council to lose sight of the development impact in the immediate area that I just described associated with the Tyler Street Tannery and also the George Street Public School property, which I understand is at high risk of also being developed. And I would just think in terms of planning that I'm hoping all of this gets taken into consideration as we move forward. So among many concerns, environmental and otherwise, one other notable issue pertains to carefully examining and considering what is a kind of an awkward and misaligned intersection at Kennedy and George Street, and how added traffic could really make that a little bit more of a dangerous situation. So I do hope that the traffic studies take into consideration the configuration of that particular intersection. In terms of progress, it's worthwhile to ask ourselves, I think, if progressive thinking is based on valuing development or valuing green space. And interestingly, if you were to look at a Google map, and I know we had a few of those up earlier, but if we could look at the pocket of space, I would call it, I guess, from Old Kennedy Street West, as I've described it, bordered by Kennedy Street roughly in the north, and Murray to the west, and then I guess circling around to the south back up to Yonge Street. So if we were sort of looking at that loop of space, or that pocket of space, other than the golf course, it's interesting if you look at a Google map, other than other people's property, but there really isn't a lot of green space aside from the golf course. And I wonder if over the years the town had approved development in this area, with the town itself maybe considering that the golf course was part of the green balance, while allowing other green spaces in that pocket to be developed. And so my point is, if you were to look at, for example, that viewpoint on a Google map, and you were to draw houses into the two fairways that currently exist, and then ultimately the George Street School, I think you'd actually find, first of all, a very radical change in the way that area looks with respect to green space. And also for an area that large, it really wouldn't have a lot of green space left. So I just wanted to make those points. And then, I also attended the open house meeting where Geranium themselves stated that they had never been involved in a project which such environmental and infill complexity. And I don't mean to be putting words in anybody's mouth, but I think those who were there heard that. And, in my hand, I actually have a 17-page report from the Lake Simcoe Region Conservation Authority, who, according to them, an unprecedented 17-page report in terms of its size and its length. And it contains questions and clarifications and concerns that the builder clearly did not address. And I worry about that in terms of competency and experience. This is aside from the builder's very own report regarding trees, where they will cut down 863, or about 75% of the trees. They state there'll be 316 trees that are recommended for preservation. Recommended does not mean that they will be saved. So let's be very careful, please, who we choose as partners.
1 minute, sir.
Yes, I'm almost done, actually. And there are certainly reasons why we value this town and why my family has valued the town, and I'm sure why so many people here value the town. And one is the precious resource that is our green space. And as it's been said many times, we just don't have an opportunity to get that back. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Horner. Dave Carter, please. Mr. Carter.
Mr. Mayor, members of council, staff, and fellow residents, my name's Dave Carter. I've lived on Banbury Court at number 10 for 15 years. I have a very brief sort of position of concern and an open question for council based on sort of a mutual concern of many community members that I've heard. And the question is that should development in any form occur, either in its current overzealous form or any other curtailed version, what impact on the property tax levies of existing homes throughout the neighborhood can be expected? Specifically, I would ask, what criteria in a scenario like this would be used in conjunction with the MPAC, with the Municipal Property Assessment Corporation or otherwise, to determine assessments or reassessments and any tax changes for any and all homes in the Highlands neighborhood, whether impacted by single-loaded roads, new homes, landlocked sections, or being located on a public park? And how will it be done fairly in light of the perceived impending threats of loss of use or loss of benefit from existing properties? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Carter. David Leclerc, please.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, councillors, staff, and fellow residents. My name is David Leclerc. I live on Willis Drive. I'm also the Vice President of the Highland Gate Ratepayers Association. A comment and a question. First, with respect to the town planner, had indicated that the transportation and urban design reports submitted as part of the application were being subject to peer review. I think that's great. If memory serves, there's 20-odd reports that were submitted with the application by the developer. I trust that the town will subject all of those reports where appropriate to peer review and not simply take those reports as fact in their consideration of the application. The question I have deals with infrastructure. And for the application as it's proposed, we're interested in what the impact is on the increased demands for existing water supply facilities, and that's pressure, flow, water quality, and sewage collection facilities. In the plan, there's a number of dead ends. I know that raises concerns with maintenance and repair over the years, again, both in respect of water mains and sewage mains. So the concern we have there is with that, and hopefully the town's looking at that in evaluating the application. Are the existing water mains, sewage mains designed for that? Do we have to increase the infrastructure to make sure that we have appropriate water supply for fire protection and things of the like? Will we need additional water treatment capacity being built as a result of the application? And ultimately, how does that affect the ratepayers throughout Aurora in bearing that cost over time? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Clare. Next up, Catherine Marshall. Ms. Marshall.
Good evening, Mayor and councillors, staff, fellow residents. I am a street captain, coast street captain for Devlin Place and Murray between Seton and Kennedy for the Ratepayers Association. My family and I have lived at 54 Devlin Place. We've been in Aurora for 18 years. My question I hear is of concern to a number of people. It is similar to Patricia Parry's question, but I will ask for a few more specifics if I could, please. If development occurs and new roads and houses are built as proposed by the developer, who is liable for damages to existing homes and properties in terms of problems that may not be immediately apparent, such as cracked foundations, drainage, and flooding, loss of landscaping, etc.? Further, or ergo, what liability coverage will be required by Highland Gate Developments, Inc., and or the town, and for what period of time? Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Marshall. Paul Skelton.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, Council, Planning, staff. Like one of your earlier speakers, I was a resident of the Highland Gate community. I left and moved to the West Coast, and when I returned to Ontario, I returned to Aurora, and I returned to the Highland Gate community. So having that as background, I'm a resident of the community. I live on Cranberry Lane, and I'm also a street captain, for full disclosure. A question, an observation, and a comment. The first thing is, earlier in the representation from the developer, we heard him say he sought out consultation. I've provided a written question to him 5 weeks ago, which has gone unanswered in any form. So I'm not sure how serious they are about the consultation. So on to the actual proposal. The proposal itself currently calls for the replacement of portions of the existing underground sanitary sewer system located in the neighborhoods, and it also encompasses the replacement of sanitary sewers within the environmental protection lands. Furthermore, it proposes sanitary sewer outfalls that may fall within close proximity of existing homes, and that may also apply to storm sewer outfalls as well. So the question that I'm placing to you tonight and to planning staff, What assurances have been provided to ensure that sewer backups and damage to water courses, as well as damage to adjacent properties, will not occur, either at the time of development, subsequent, or in the legacy you're now deciding the future of? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Skelton. David Metcalf, please.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, councillors, staff, and fellow residents. My name is Dave Metcalf. I live at 45 Marsh Harbour. I'm the street captain for the Ratepayers Association. I have a comment and a question. I'm currently back in Aurora for the second time, and in total I've been a resident for 11 years. I think it's interesting the number of people who have come to this podium who have either lived in this town for a very, very long time or are back for their second or third shot at Aurora. I think it speaks to the character of the town, and I think it speaks to the nature of the town as it exists today. Prior to coming back to Aurora, I lived in Brussels for 10 years, and for those who know Brussels, you know that it is a city in Belgium that has in its center a massive forest that has been maintained for the enjoyment of the citizens for all time. I think the town council and planning staff have an opportunity to do something similar here in terms of maintaining green space in the middle of this town. And I think that's a very, very important piece of this entire puzzle. To my question, it's clear that some development will probably take place and that some conveyance of lands to the town will also take place. We know that there have been budget constraints and difficulties over the last many years. So my question is, will Highland Gate developments be required to provide a maintenance fund to be used by the town of Aurora to take care of the conveyed lands in whole or in part? And if so, how much money will they be required to deposit and for what period of time?
Thank you, sir. Next up, we have Jackie Ward.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, council members, and fellow taxpayers. I have a comment and then a question. I would like you all to pause for a moment and think about what you want your legacy to be once you move on from council. You all have the opportunity to create a unique, one-of-a-kind open space comprising parks, gardens, trails, and ponds that wind through the heart of the Highland Gate community. If you allow this infill development of 180 homes to take place, your legacy will not be a positive one. 50 years from now, your legacy may not even be a negative one. But if you ensure this one-of-a-kind open space remain as green space, your legacy will live on forever as the ones who saved the Highland Gate community. Now to my question. Phasing of the construction over time will be very disruptive to everyone. Will the town require that any development or construction be undertaken at the same time as to disrupt the current neighborhood in the least possible way? Also, who will oversee the construction plan in terms of ensuring that noise, dirt, storing of equipment, construction traffic on residential roads, safety of pedestrians and children playing will be carefully monitored? In addition to that, a lot of us spend a lot of time in the summer in our backyards and pools, enjoying our open space in our yards, and having construction throughout the summer would highly disrupt any sort of enjoyment we have of our yards. So if that could be taken into consideration as well, that would be greatly appreciated. Thank you.
Just before I ask Ms. Walmer to come up, just if anybody's come in since we've started and would like to speak, we just simply ask that you register at the desk over in the corner so we can make sure that we get everybody up. Ms. Walmer, please.
Thank you. My name is Susan Wolmer. I currently live at 14 Marsh Harbor. I previously also lived in Aurora, in a different part of town, in the south end of town. And when we chose to move to a different location, my daughter, who was in grade 8 at that time, took a lot of care to find a community and a yard that had a lot of trees and a lot of environment in it. So she'd been raised in an area. I was fortunate enough to live in the south end of Aurora, and she was raised with a lot of environment and a lot of environmental activism. And so she was a huge part in us moving into the Highland Gate community. I am currently a board member of the Highland Gate Ratepayers Association, but so some of you may know in my past, I was also a founding board chair for the Ratepayers of Aurora Young South. I had the opportunity and honor to be involved in the planning process for the southern section of Aurora, and also in environmental advocacy and the stakeholder process for the Oak Ridges Marine Conservation Plan. RAISE, as we called the organization, and still do, together with many of the local area residents, worked tirelessly providing input and comments on applications, and eventually RAISE took part and stood with the town and council at the Ontario Municipal Board hearings and was successful in achieving a much lower density at 2 units per acre, which then became approved by the OMB and is now the maximum density in the Aurora South Secondary Plan. We were successful by working together and upholding our official policies and plans. We can do this again. We were very influential in the establishment of the town official plans, which defines the laws governing these lands and affects all future development. I learned much about the planning process during this time and worked together with the town planning staff and councillors. We have started that relationship again during this process, and I thank you very much for allowing that to continue. Through the effort of many of our members who are here tonight, we are highlighting issues in this proposed development applications so that you will uphold the existing town policies, which other ratepayers groups have worked so hard to help create many years ago. Working to prevent any rezoning of lands which could undermine the intent and policy structure which is clearly stated in both of our official plans. Like other ratepayers associations, we are in favor of good development, one which maintains a harmonious balance between urbanization and environment. We need to recognize to move forward with the urbanization of lands, but doing it in a way which does not totally lose its regard for common sense planning and nature itself. As a volunteer, reviewing a number of detailed technical reports is a very daunting task. But when researching the web, I found a number of ideas from the Minister of Municipal Affairs and Housing about land use tools that could be used in land use planning. And I was reminded of some of them that we've used in the past here. To quote the MMAH, municipalities and planning boards are delegated land use planning approvals and are accountable for protecting provincial policy interests as set out in the provincial policy statement and for ensuring conformity with their official plans. Where the municipality is the approval authority, which you are in this case, it must ensure that it has the technical expertise and support to carry out its plan review and approval responsibilities. There are 2 land use planning models. One is expertise in other agencies or municipalities, and in this case, the Lake Simcoe Region Conservation Authority, or in conjunction, a peer review. As David Leclerc mentioned, due to significant natural heritage features, the Highland Gate community, our municipality may wish to hire an outside consultant to review selected technical reports as well as environmental reports submitted in support of the application. Some of the lessons learned from other municipalities is that these technical reviews could be considered using a peer review that can speed up the decision-making process, and the reports are reviewed in a timely manner. Costs are recovered from the applicant. With the assistance of outside technical expertise, you are able to give more regard to policy statements. The peer review process has been accepted by the development community because there's a definite and reasonable time frame, and the process is straightforward, and there are strict accounting policies. Although I know that the planning department have engaged consultants for certain reviews, such as transportation and urban design, I implore the town to require peer reviews for all the studies provided by Geranium to ensure the accuracy and completeness of the assessments of recommendations being made by the town or by the Lake Simcoe Conservation Authority.
Thank you, Ms. Plummer. Brad Garretts, please.
Okay, hello, Mr. Mayor, council, staff, and all. My name is Brad Garretts. I live on Owl's Foot Crescent in Aurora. I have a question on behalf of the members of the Highland Gate Ratepayers Association. In the event that the development moves forward as proposed, what is the impact of and added cost for street cleaning, snow removal, sanding, salting, street lights, hydro service, gas, Bell and Rogers service, and garbage yard waste and recycling collection in the proposed tighter streets? Will infrastructure upgrades be required, or different vehicles or operations and maintenance equipment practices be required that will increase rates, taxes, or impact on residents in the Highlands and for all residents of Aurora? Thank you.